The gun pressed against Kendra's temple felt surprisingly cold. She didn't flinch. Across the room, Lim Tae-hyung stood frozen, his usually impassive face twisted with an emotion she'd never seen before, raw, primal fear. Not for himself, for her. "Let her go," he said, his voice deadly calm despite the tremor she caught underneath. "This is between us, Petrov." Sergei Petrov laughed, the sound echoing through the abandoned warehouse. "But she's the perfect leverage, isn't she? The great Lim Tae-hyung brought to his knees by a woman he married by mistake." His fingers tightened in Kendra's hair. "Everyone expected her to suffer in your world. They had no idea you'd be the one suffering instead." Kendra's eyes met Tae-hyung's across the distance. In that moment she saw everything. The careful walls he'd built crumbling, the truth he'd hidden laid bare. The man who ruled Chicago's underworld with an iron fist was breaking apart, and it was all because of her. "Wrong," Tae-hyung said quietly. "I'm not the one who's going to suffer." Everything happened at once. 3 months earlier, Kendra Washington had learned early in life that survival meant keeping your head down and your expectations low. At 28, working double shifts at Morrison's Diner in Chicago's South Side, while taking online paralegal courses at night, she'd mastered the art of invisible endurance. Her reflection in the diner's scratched mirror showed a woman who'd forgotten how to dream. Dark brown skin that rarely saw sunlight, natural hair pulled back in a practical bun, eyes that had seen too much disappointment to hope for more. "Order up, Kendra," Linda Morrison's voice cut through her thoughts. Kendra grabbed the plates, stack of pancakes, scrambled eggs, bacon, and delivered them with the smile she'd perfected over 6 years of service work. The smile that said, "I'm grateful for this job," even when her feet screamed and her back ached, and she calculated how many more shifts before she could afford to replace her dying car. The morning rush was brutal. Kendra moved through it mechanically, refilling coffee, taking orders, dodging wandering hands from men who thought a waitress was part of the menu. By noon, she was running on fumes and the bitter dregs of her 4th cup of coffee. That's when he walked in. Kendra noticed him immediately. Everyone did. Lim Tae-hyung moved through the diner like he owned it, which, given his reputation, he probably could have if he wanted. 6 feet of lean muscle in a tailored black suit that cost more than Kendra made in 6 months, he radiated the kind of power that made people step aside without being asked. His face was striking, sharp cheekbones, intense dark eyes that missed nothing, black hair styled with casual perfection, but it was the aura around him that made Kendra's instincts scream danger. The way 3 men in equally expensive suits flanked him, the subtle bulge under one's jacket that suggested a weapon, the absolute silence that fell over the diner as he chose a booth in the corner. Everyone in Chicago knew who Lim Tae-hyung was, even if they pretended not to. Head of the Korean Mafia's Chicago operations, he controlled everything from the docks to half the city's real estate, laundering money through legitimate businesses while running an empire built on fear and loyalty. The newspapers called him a businessman. The streets knew better. "Kendra, you take that table," Linda hissed, her face pale. "And for God's sake, don't mess it up." Kendra's stomach dropped. "Why me?" "Because you're professional, and you don't gossip." Linda pushed the order pad into her hands. "And because I'm not getting anywhere near that man." Squaring her shoulders, Kendra approached the booth. 3 pairs of eyes tracked her movement. Tae-hyung's men assessing her for threats. Tae-hyung himself looked up from his phone, and Kendra felt the full force of his attention like a physical weight. "Good afternoon," she said, proud when her voice came out steady. "Can I start you with coffee?" "Americano. Black." His voice was deep, accent barely detectable, 2nd generation probably with that perfect English. "And whatever your best breakfast is. The Denver omelette is popular." "Fine." He dismissed her with a glance, returning to his phone. Kendra should have been relieved. Instead, she felt oddly irritated. She'd waited on plenty of rich men who treated her like furniture, but something about Lim Tae-hyung's casual dismissal stung more than usual. She brought his coffee, set it down carefully. "Your food will be up shortly." He didn't look up. Kendra was turning away when the diner door burst open. A woman stormed in, beautiful, Korean, dripping with designer labels and fury. She made a beeline for Tae-hyung's booth. her voice rising in rapid Korean that Kendra didn't understand but recognized as an argument. Nicole Butler. Kendra had seen her picture in the society pages, tech heiress, philanthropist, and apparently Tae-hyung's fiancée. The confrontation escalated. Nicole's voice got louder. Tae-hyung remained seated, his expression carved from stone, but Kendra saw his jaw tighten. One of his men stepped forward, trying to calm Nicole, but she shoved past him. "You think you can ignore me?" Nicole switched to English, her accent crisp and educated. "My father won't tolerate this disrespect. The engagement is off, Tae-hyung. You can find another way to secure your precious alliance." She turned on her designer heel and swept out, leaving a silence heavy with implications. Kendra busied herself wiping down a nearby table, trying not to eavesdrop. She failed. One of Tae-hyung's men, younger with nervous energy, leaned forward. "Boss, if the Butler alliance falls through..." "It won't." Tae-hyung's voice was cold. "Notify Attorney Bell. We proceed as planned." "But sir, Miss Butler just..." "I heard her." Tae-hyung stood, buttoning his suit jacket. "The engagement isn't off. It's simply being renegotiated." He left cash on the table, far more than the meal cost, and walked out without eating. Kendra pocketed the generous tip and tried to forget the whole strange encounter. She should have known better than to think her world and Lim Tae-hyung's would never intersect again. That evening, exhausted and desperate for a break, Kendra met her best friend Lisa at their favorite soul food spot in Bronzeville. Lisa worked as a legal secretary and had connections Kendra envied. "Girl, you look dead on your feet," Lisa said, sliding a sweet tea across the table. "When's the last time you took a day off?" "Can't afford to." Kendra picked at her catfish. "My mom needs help with her medical bills and my certification exam is coming up. I just need to get through the next few months." "What you need is a miracle." Lisa pulled out her phone. "Actually, speaking of miracles, you know I work at that immigration law firm, right? Well, we've been getting some weird requests lately. Rich people looking for quick marriages for visa purposes. The pay is insane, Kendra. We're talking $50,000 for 6 months of paperwork marriage." Kendra nearly choked on her tea. "That's illegal. It's a gray area. The marriages are real, legally, and if both parties consent, who gets hurt?" Lisa leaned forward. "I'm just saying, if you needed money fast, I'm not marrying a stranger for money. Even if that stranger never bothered you, it's just paperwork, girl. You'd have your own space, your own life. Just show up for a few photos, sign some documents, and walk away 50,000 richer." Kendra wanted to say no. She should have said no, but $50,000 would change everything. Pay off her mother's debts, cover her certification, maybe even let her quit one of her jobs. The number haunted her all night. 3 days later, Linda fired her. "I'm sorry, Kendra," Linda said, genuine regret in her eyes. "Corporate is cutting staff. Last hired, first fired." Kendra's world tilted. "But I've been here 6 years. I know. I fought for you. I'm sorry." Walking out of Morrison's diner for the last time, Kendra felt something inside her crack. She'd played by the rules, worked hard, kept her head down, and where had it gotten her? Unemployed with rent due in a week and her mother's medications running out. She pulled out her phone and dialed Lisa's number. "Tell me more about those marriage arrangements." The law office of Marcus Bell occupied the 20th floor of a gleaming downtown tower that made Kendra feel distinctly out of place. She'd worn her best interview suit, 5 years old but still respectable, and spent an hour on her hair, twisting it into an elegant updo that framed her face. Still, walking through those marble corridors past women in designer everything, she felt like an imposter. Attorney Bell was a distinguished black man in his 50s with silver at his temples and the easy confidence of someone who'd navigated both legitimate and less legitimate worlds successfully. His office overlooked Lake Michigan, all leather and mahogany and power. "Miss Washington," he gestured to a chair. "Lisa speaks highly of you. She says you're discreet, responsible, and in need of financial assistance." Kendra's back straightened. She might be desperate, but she still had pride. "I'm currently between positions. I'm looking for opportunities that might help me complete my paralegal certification." "I see." Bell steepled his fingers. "What I'm about to propose is unorthodox, but entirely legal. A client of mine requires a marriage, a real legal marriage, for immigration and business purposes. The arrangement would last 6 months, after which you would receive $50,000 and an uncontested divorce. During that time, you would maintain the appearance of a married couple at select public events, but otherwise live entirely separate lives. Who's the client? I'm not at liberty to say until you sign a non-disclosure agreement. Bell slid a document across the desk. But I can tell you he's a prominent businessman, well-respected, and perfectly safe. This is strictly a business transaction. Kendra's hands trembled as she picked up the pen. Every instinct screamed this was wrong, too easy, too good to be true. But $50,000? She signed. Bell smiled. Excellent. Your husband will be Lim Tae-hyung. The pen clattered from Kendra's fingers. The crime boss? The businessman and entrepreneur, Bell corrected smoothly. Mr. Lim needs to solidify certain alliances that require a stable family image. His previous engagement ended unexpectedly. You're the solution. I can't, he'll never, I'm not... Kendra couldn't finish a sentence, her mind reeling. Mr. Lim has reviewed your profile and approved. You're educated, poised, scandal-free, and most importantly, you need money enough to commit to the arrangement fully. The ceremony is tomorrow. Tomorrow? The sooner the marriage is official, the sooner Mr. Lim can proceed with certain business matters. Everything is arranged. You'll be picked up at 8 a.m. Kendra stumbled out of Bell's office in a daze. She'd expected some tech millionaire needing a green card, maybe an older businessman wanting arm candy for appearances. Not Lim Tae-hyung, not the man whose reputation made hardened criminals cross the street. She should back out. She should run. But she didn't. The next morning, a black Mercedes arrived precisely at 8. The driver, one of Tae-hyung's men she recognized from the diner, opened the door without speaking. Kendra climbed in, wearing a simple white dress Lisa had helped her find, her natural hair styled in soft curls that took 3 hours and a YouTube tutorial. Her hands wouldn't stop shaking. The city clerk's office was quiet, arranged for a private ceremony. Tae-hyung stood by the window, his back to her, talking on his phone in rapid Korean. When he turned, Kendra's breath caught. He wore a charcoal suit, perfectly tailored, with a white shirt open at the collar. In the morning light he was devastating, beautiful in that dangerous way that made smart women stupid. But his eyes, when they swept over her, held all the warmth of a business appraisal. Miss Washington, he ended his call, you look appropriate. Appropriate. Kendra's jaw tightened. Thank you, you look present. Something flickered in his eyes. Surprise? Amusement? But his expression remained neutral. Let's proceed. I have a meeting at 10. The ceremony lasted 7 minutes. Kendra heard herself repeat vows, felt Tae-hyung's fingers, surprisingly warm, slide a platinum band onto her hand. When the clerk pronounced them married, Tae-hyung's kiss was brief, perfunctory, his lips barely brushing hers, but even that fleeting contact sent electricity through her body, leaving her shaken. We need photos for documentation, Attorney Bell said, appearing with a photographer. For 20 minutes, Kendra stood beside her new husband while cameras clicked. Tae-hyung's arm around her waist was professional, his smile for the photos perfectly calibrated. They looked, she thought bitterly, like the perfect couple. No one would guess she didn't know his favorite color, his birthday, whether he liked coffee or tea. Wait, she did know. Americano. Black. There's a gathering tonight, Tae-hyung said, as the photographer packed up. Business associates who need to meet my wife. An Shu-woo will collect you at 7. Wear something elegant, but not ostentatious. I don't have... Kendra started, but he was already walking away, phone to his ear. A stylist will visit you this afternoon, Bell interjected smoothly. Everything you need will be provided. Your belongings are being moved to Mr. Lim's penthouse as we speak. My belongings? I didn't agree to... Page 7 of the contract. You'll reside at Mr. Lim's primary residence for the duration of the marriage to maintain appearances. You'll have your own suite, complete privacy. Kendra wanted to scream. Instead, she nodded, because that's what she did. Survived, adapted, endured. The penthouse was obscene, floor-to-ceiling windows overlooking the city, Minimalist furniture that probably cost more than her entire childhood home, art on the walls that Kendra recognized from her art history elective. A housekeeper named Mrs. Chen showed her to her suite. Bedroom, bathroom, and sitting room, all bigger than her old apartment. "Mr. Lim is rarely home," Mrs. Chen said in accented English. "He works late, sleeps little. You won't see him much." Good, Kendra thought. Perfect. The stylist arrived with racks of designer dresses. Kendra chose a deep emerald gown that complemented her skin tone, elegant without screaming, "Look at me." The stylist did her makeup, emphasizing her high cheekbones, her full lips, and styled her hair in an updo with delicate curls framing her face. Looking in the mirror, Kendra barely recognized herself. She looked like she belonged in Tai Hyung's world. It was a lie, but a convincing one. An Shi-woo, the nervous young man from the diner, collected her at 7 sharp. "You look beautiful, Mrs. Lim," he said respectfully. Mrs. Lim. The name felt foreign, dangerous. The gathering was at an exclusive restaurant, top floor reserved for Tai Hyung's guests. Kendra walked in on Shi-woo's arm, aware of every eye turning toward her. The room held perhaps 40 people, businessmen in expensive suits, women dripping with jewelry, an undercurrent of power that had nothing to do with money. Tae Hyung stood at the center, commanding attention without effort. When he saw Kendra, something crossed his face, too quick to identify. He crossed the room with predatory grace. Kendra. Her name on his lips sent shivers down her spine. He took her hand, his thumb brushing over her wedding ring. "You're stunning." It was performance, she knew, but the way he looked at her made her skin flush. "Thank you," she managed. "You clean up well yourself." His lips quirked, almost a smile. "Come. There are people you need to meet." For the next hour, Tae Hyung kept her at his side, introducing her as his wife with a possessiveness that felt disturbingly real. Kendra smiled, made polite conversation, and tried to ignore how Tae Hyung's hand at the small of her back burned through the fabric of her dress. She was talking to a gallery owner about an upcoming exhibition when she heard Tae Hyung's voice turn cold. "Petrov, I didn't expect you." Kendra turned. Sergei Petrov was tall, blonde, with pale eyes that held no warmth. Russian Mafia, her mind supplied. Rival organization. "Congratulations on your marriage, Lim," Petrov said, his smile sharp. "Such a unexpected choice of bride." The insult was subtle but clear. Kendra felt Tae Hyung stiffen beside her. "My wife is remarkable," Tae Hyung said quietly. "More than you could comprehend." "Of course." Petrov's eyes raked over Kendra with deliberate disrespect. "I simply meant—" "I know what you meant." Tae Hyung's voice dropped to lethal softness. "And I suggest you reconsider your next words carefully." The room went silent. Kendra could feel violence hovering just beneath the surface, could see Tae Hyung's men shifting position around the room. One word from him and blood would spill. She placed her hand on Tae Hyung's arm. "Honey, didn't you say you wanted to show me the terrace?" Tae Hyung looked down at her, and Kendra saw surprise in his eyes. Then something else. Approval. "Yes," he said finally. "Excuse us, Petrov." On the terrace, with Chicago spread out below them, Tae Hyung released a long breath. "You didn't have to intervene. You were about to start a war in the middle of a party." Kendra wrapped her arms around herself, the evening breeze cool against her skin. Seemed counterproductive. Most women would have been terrified. "I was terrified," Kendra admitted. "But I've dealt with entitled men who think they can disrespect me my whole life. At least with you, the threat of violence is honest." Tae Hyung laughed. Actually laughed, the sound surprising and genuine. "You're not what I expected, Kendra Washington." "Yeah, well, you're exactly what I expected. Cold, controlled, dangerous." She met his eyes. "This is just business, right? 6 months, 50,000, then we go our separate ways." "Right." But the way he was looking at her made her wonder if either of them believed it. "Then I can survive anything for 6 months," Kendra said. "Even you." His smile was slow, dangerous. "We'll see." 3 weeks into her marriage, Kendra established a routine. Tae Hyung left before she woke, returned after she slept. They existed in the same space like ghosts, occasionally passing in hallways, never speaking beyond polite acknowledgement. It was exactly what she'd signed up for. So why did she feel disappointed every morning when she found his coffee cup already rinsed in the sink? She threw herself into her paralegal studies, grateful for the quiet luxury of the penthouse. Mrs. Chen kept the place immaculate and seemed to appreciate having someone to cook for. Kendra learned quickly that the older woman had worked for Tae-hyung's family since he was a boy, had followed him from Seoul to Chicago, and loved him with fierce maternal devotion. "He works too hard," Mrs. Chen confided one afternoon. "Never sleeps, never eats properly. Since his parents died, he forgets to live." Kendra filed that information away, trying not to care. Tae-hyung's emotional well-being wasn't her concern. This was business. Then the threat started. The first note appeared under the penthouse door, cut-out magazine letters like a bad movie. "The black whore doesn't belong." Kendra showed it to Shiwoo, who paled and immediately called Tae-hyung. 20 minutes later, her husband materialized in the penthouse, still in his suit from whatever meeting he'd interrupted. "You weren't going to tell me." His voice was dangerously soft. "I told Shiwoo. That's protocol, right?" Kendra refused to be intimidated. "I'm not stupid, Tae-hyung. I knew marrying you would paint a target on me. No one threatens what's mine." The possessiveness in his voice made her breath catch. "Security will be tripled. You don't go anywhere without Shiwoo. I'm not a prisoner. You're my wife, which makes you a target for anyone who wants to hurt me." His jaw tightened. "I won't have your death on my conscience." How thoughtful. Is this in the contract? Protection from racist hate mail. This isn't a joke, Kendra. No, it's my life. She stepped closer, anger overriding caution. "You brought me into your world, Tae-hyung. Don't act surprised when it gets messy." They stood inches apart, tension crackling between them. Kendra became acutely aware of his height, his controlled power, the way his eyes dropped to her lips before snapping back up. "You're right," he said finally. "This is my fault. I'll fix it." The second note arrived 3 days later, more explicit. Kendra was almost used to them when the third one came with a photo, her leaving the penthouse, crosshairs drawn over her face. Tae-hyung didn't shout this time. He went quiet, which was worse. That night, Kendra woke to find him in her sitting room, laptop open, going through security footage. "You should be sleeping," she said from the doorway. "So should you." He didn't look up. "I'm identifying the courier. When I find them..." "You'll do what?" "Torture them. Kill them." Kendra sat on the arm of the couch. "That won't stop whoever sent them. It will send a message." His voice was cold, empty. "No one touches what belongs to me. I don't belong to you. We have a contract. We have a marriage." He finally looked at her, and the intensity in his eyes stole her breath. "Legal, binding, public, which means the world sees you as mine, and I protect what's mine. Tae-hyung." He stood abruptly, crossing to her. Kendra's heart hammered as he stopped inches away, his hand coming up to cup her face. His thumb brushed her cheekbone, the touch surprisingly gentle. "Someone wants to hurt you to hurt me," he said quietly. "They've miscalculated. I don't care enough about anything to be hurt, except..." He seemed to catch himself. "This marriage is a business arrangement, but I won't let you be harmed, not while you wear my ring." Kendra's hand covered his before she could stop herself. "I'm not afraid." "You should be." But he didn't move away. The moment stretched, heavy with things neither could say. Then Tae-hyung's phone buzzed. He stepped back, the connection broken. "Shiwoo found the courier," he said, all business again. "I need to handle this." "Tae-hyung, lock the door behind me. Don't open it for anyone." He was gone before she could respond, leaving her with a racing heart and the ghost of his touch on her skin. The next morning, Kendra woke to find a package outside her door. Inside was a platinum bracelet, delicate and beautiful, with a small charm, a falcon. No note, but she knew who it was from. Mrs. Chen found her staring at it in the kitchen. "Mr. Lim's symbol," she said softly. "He's called the Falcon in the organization. Fast, deadly, sees everything. It's beautiful." "It's a claim." Mrs. Chen poured coffee. "He's telling the world you're under his protection. No one will dare touch you now." Kendra slipped the bracelet on. It fit perfectly. That evening, Tae-hyung actually came home for dinner. Mrs. Chen had prepared galbi, Korean short ribs, and Kendra had helped, learning techniques and stories about Tae-hyung's childhood. "For you helped cook?" Tae-hyung seemed genuinely surprised. "Mrs. Chen taught me I make a mean kimchi jjigae now," Kendra served herself. "Don't look so shocked. I'm not completely useless in a kitchen." "I didn't mean—" He stopped, something like embarrassment crossing his face. "Thank you for learning." They ate in companionable silence. Kendra told him about her certification progress. He listened, asked intelligent questions, and told her about a property deal he was negotiating. It felt almost normal. "The bracelet," Kendra said as Mrs. Chen cleared plates. "Thank you. It's gorgeous. It's a statement." Tae-hyung's eyes met hers. "You're protected now. No one will dare threaten you again, because they're afraid of you." "Yes. No apology, just truth. Doesn't that bother you, being feared?" He considered the question. "Fear is more reliable than love. Fear keeps people alive. That's lonely. Safe is more important than happy." But his voice held an edge of something that might have been regret. Later they sat on the terrace, the city lights spreading below. Kendra had brought sweet tea, her grandmother's recipe, and was surprised when Tae-hyung tried it. "It's good," he said. "Sweet, like you." Kendra snorted. "I'm not sweet, I'm practical. You helped Mrs. Chen because it made her happy. You didn't have to. She's kind to me. Why wouldn't I?" Tae-hyung looked at her strangely. "Most people do things for a reason. Advantage, manipulation, gain. Most people aren't as cynical as you." Kendra leaned back, enjoying the breeze. "I grew up poor, Tae-hyung. Community meant survival. We helped each other because that's what you do. My world doesn't work that way. Maybe your world needs better rules." He laughed quietly. "You'd reform the Mafia?" "Someone should." She met his eyes. "You're not as terrible as you want people to think." "I'm worse." His voice went hard. "Don't romanticize me, Kendra. I've done things that would make you run screaming. Try me." For a long moment they stared at each other. Then Tae-hyung's phone rang. It always did. He answered in Korean, his expression closing off. "I have to go," he said after ending the call. "Business. At 10 at night? My business doesn't keep office hours." He stood, hesitated. "Kendra, be careful. These threats are serious." "I know. I'm wearing your very expensive statement bracelet." His lips quirked. "It looks good on you." "Everything does." He left before she could respond, but Kendra sat on the terrace for another hour, touching the falcon charm and wondering when this contract marriage had started feeling like something more. The answer came 3 nights later, when Kendra attended a charity gala as Tae-hyung's wife. She wore red, a bold choice, a dress that hugged her curves and made her feel powerful. When Tae-hyung saw her, he stopped mid-sentence, his eyes darkening. "Beautiful," he murmured, offering his arm. "You'll be the most stunning woman there." The gala was a glittering affair, Chicago's elite pretending their wealth absolved them of sin. Kendra smiled, made conversation, and tried to ignore how Tae-hyung's hand never left her waist, how he introduced her with unmistakable pride. "Your husband is very protective," a society matron observed. "He hasn't taken his eyes off you all evening." Kendra glanced across the room. Sure enough, Tae-hyung was watching her even as he spoke with business associates, his gaze tracking her every movement. Then Nicole Butler appeared. "Kendra." Nicole's smile was sharp. "What a surprise. I didn't think you'd last 3 weeks. Here I am." Kendra kept her voice pleasant. "The marriage is going well, thank you for asking." "Is it?" Nicole's eyes glittered with malice. "Everyone knows what you are. A contract wife. Bought and paid for." "Everyone knows what you are too," Kendra replied softly. "A woman whose fiancé chose a waitress over you, that must sting." Nicole's face flushed with rage. "You little— Is there a problem?" Tae-hyung materialized beside Kendra, his voice deadly calm. "No problem," Nicole said tightly. "I was just congratulating your wife." "Good. Then you can congratulate her from the other side of the room." Tae-hyung's arm slipped around Kendra's shoulders. Permanently. Nicole left, and Kendra should have felt triumphant. Instead, she felt shaky, aware of Tae-hyung's heat against her side. "You didn't have to do that," she said. "She insulted you. That's unacceptable." His fingers tightened on her shoulder. "No one disrespects my wife. Even if your wife is just a business arrangement?" Tae-hyung turned her to face him. They stood in the middle of the ballroom, dozens of eyes on them, but his focus was entirely on her. "You're more than that," he said quietly. "You've been more than that since you touched my arm and pulled me away from starting a war." Kendra's breath caught. "Tae-hyung, dance with me." It wasn't a question. He led her onto the floor, his hand at her waist, her hand in his. They moved together perfectly, as if they'd been dancing for years instead of weeks. "This isn't real," Kendra whispered. "We're playing roles." "Are we?" His eyes searched hers. "Because this feels fairly real to me." The music swelled. Tae-hyung pulled her closer, until they were pressed together, until Kendra could feel his heartbeat against hers. Around them the world blurred. There was only this, his hands, her breath, the dangerous feeling taking root in her chest. When the song ended, Tae-hyung didn't release her. Instead, he leaned down, his lips brushing her ear. "I told myself this was business," he murmured. "I'm not sure I believe that anymore." Before Kendra could respond, gunfire shattered the windows. The world exploded into chaos. Tae-hyung shoved Kendra to the floor, his body covering hers as glass rained down. More gunfire, staccato bursts that sent the gala attendees screaming and scrambling. Kendra's ears rang, her heart hammering against her ribs. "Stay down," Tae-hyung ordered, already moving. He had a gun. Where had that come from? And was barking orders in Korean to his men who materialized like smoke, weapons drawn. Kendra's training kicked in, the self-defense classes her mother had insisted on, the survival instincts honed from years in rough neighborhoods. She crawled behind an overturned table, scanning for exits. Another burst of gunfire, closer this time. Someone screamed. Then she saw him. Kwon Dong-wook, Tae-hyung's second in command, bleeding from a shoulder wound, trying to reach cover. 3 men in black masks advancing on him, weapons raised. Kendra didn't think. She grabbed a champagne bottle from the floor and threw it with all her strength. It caught one attacker in the head, distracting them long enough for Dong-wook to return fire. The masked men scattered. "Get to safety," Dong-wook shouted at her. But Kendra was already moving toward him, pulling off her shawl to press against his wound. "You're bleeding. Mrs. Lim, you need to—" "Shut up and let me help." Tae-hyung appeared like an avenging angel, his face a mask of cold fury. "Kendra, what the hell?" "He's hurt." She kept pressure on Dong-wook's wound, her hands steady despite her racing heart. "We need to get him to a hospital." The gunfire was dying down. Tae-hyung's men had secured the perimeter, and sirens wailed in the distance. Tae-hyung crouched beside them, his eyes sweeping Kendra for injuries. "You're not hurt?" His hands moved over her, checking for blood. "I'm fine. Help me with Dong-wook." Between them, they got the injured man to a car. Tae-hyung's driver, Falcon they called him, a man who moved with deadly precision, took them to a private clinic in a nondescript building on the south side. The doctor, a calm woman in her 60s, asked no questions. She treated Dong-wook's wound while Kendra paced the waiting room, adrenaline slowly giving way to shakes. Tae-hyung caught her hands. "Sit down before you fall down." "I'm fine." "You're in shock." He guided her to a chair, his hands surprisingly gentle. "What you did back there, throwing that bottle, that was incredibly stupid." He was going to die. "So were you if they'd turned their guns on you." Tae-hyung's jaw clenched. "I told you to stay down. And I told you I'm not helpless." Kendra met his eyes. "Dong-wook is your friend. I wasn't going to watch him die." Something shifted in Tae-hyung's expression. He lifted her hands, still stained with Dong-wook's blood, and pressed a kiss to her knuckles. "You saved his life," he said quietly. "And he's been with me since we were teenagers. I owe you a debt I can never repay. You don't owe me anything. We're married, remember? Your people are my people. This isn't that kind of marriage. Maybe it should be." The words hung between them, heavy with implication. Tae-hyung's eyes darkened, his thumb stroking over her racing pulse. "Kendra," the doctor emerged. "He'll be fine. The bullet went clean through. He needs rest." Relief flooded Kendra. Tae-hyung stood, all business again, issuing orders to his men. But his hand found Kendra's, fingers lacing through hers. They went back to the penthouse in silence. Kendra's red dress was ruined, torn and blood-stained. She showered, scrubbing Dong-wook's blood from her skin. trying not to think about how close they'd all come to dying. When she emerged in her robe, Tae-hyung was in her sitting room again, a tumbler of whiskey in his hand. He'd changed into black slacks and a white shirt, the sleeves rolled up, revealing surprisingly muscled forearms. He looked exhausted, the control he usually wore like armor cracking at the edges. "You should sleep," Kendra said softly. "Can't." He took a long drink. "Every time I close my eyes, I see you on that floor with bullets flying." Kendra sat beside him on the couch, close enough that their shoulders touched. "But I'm fine. We're both fine. This time." His voice was rough. "The attack was aimed at me, Kendra. Everyone in that ballroom was collateral damage. You—" He broke off, his hand clenching on the glass. "I can't protect you from my world. I was a fool to think I could." "So what are you saying? You want to end the marriage early?" "I'm saying you should run. Take the 50,000 and disappear before someone uses you to destroy me." Kendra took the whiskey from his hand and set it aside. Then she turned to face him fully, one hand on his chest, feeling his heart race. "I'm not running," she said. "I signed a contract for 6 months. You're stuck with me." "Kendra, besides, you said I'm more than a contract wife. Or were you lying?" Tae-hyung's eyes searched hers. "I've never lied to you, not once." "Then prove it." She didn't know who moved first. Suddenly his hands were in her hair, her mouth on his. 6 weeks of denial and attraction exploding into desperate need. Tae-hyung kissed like he did everything, with absolute focus and devastating skill. His tongue swept against hers, his hands gripping her waist, pulling her against him until there was no space between them. Kendra had been kissed before. This wasn't kissing, this was claiming, consuming, a fire that threatened to burn them both alive. When they finally broke apart, both breathing hard, Tae-hyung pressed his forehead to hers. "This changes everything," he said. "I know. We can't go back to business arrangement. I don't want to." Kendra's hands fisted in his shirt. "I haven't wanted to for weeks." "You make me weak." His voice was anguished. "In my world, weakness is death." "Then maybe you're in the wrong world." "It's the only world I know." Kendra pulled back enough to meet his eyes. "Teach me. Show me your world, all of it. The good, the bad, the ugly. Let me decide if I can handle it. And if you can't, then I'll walk away. But give me the choice, Tae-hyung. Stop deciding for me." He studied her face, and Kendra saw the moment he surrendered. "You want the truth? The real truth about who I am and what I do?" "Yes." "Then come with me." He took her to his study, unlocked a wall safe she hadn't known existed. Inside were documents, photos, evidence of every illegal activity his organization ran. Money laundering, smuggling, extortion, all laid bare. "This is who I am," Tae-hyung said, his voice flat. "The Falcon. Leader of the Baiko. I've killed men who threatened my territory. I've destroyed families who challenged me. I'm not a good man, Kendra. I'm barely a man at all." Kendra looked through the documents, her paralegal training allowing her to understand the scope of his empire. It was vast, intricate, built on violence and blood. "Why show me this?" she asked finally. "Because you deserve the truth, and because—" He ran a hand through his hair, the gesture uncharacteristically vulnerable. "I'm tired of hiding from you. If you're going to stay, you need to know exactly what you're staying for." Kendra set the documents aside. "Do you hurt innocent people? Define innocent." "Children, women who aren't involved, people just trying to survive." "No." His voice was firm. "My organization has rules. No drugs, no human trafficking. No harming civilians unless they pose a direct threat." "So you're a crime boss with a conscience?" "I'm a crime boss who learned from my father's mistakes." Tae-hyung sat on the edge of his desk. "He was brutal, indiscriminate. He made enemies everywhere. It got him killed when I was 23. I rebuilt the organization on different principles. Still illegal, still dangerous, but with boundaries." "Your parents, you said they died." "Both of them. Car bomb. Meant for me." The words were emotionless, but pain flickered in his eyes. "I was supposed to be in that car. My father took my mother to the opera instead. She'd been begging him for months. He finally agreed. They died in my place." Kendra's heart clenched. "Tae-hyung, don't." He held up a hand. "Don't pity me. I made my choices. I stayed in this life knowing the cost." That doesn't mean you don't deserve compassion. He laughed bitterly. Compassion. From my contract wife, who I've dragged into hell. Kendra crossed to him, standing between his legs, her hands on his shoulders. Stop calling me that, contract wife, like I'm some paid actress. Aren't you? Maybe I was, but that kiss sure as hell felt real. Taehyung's hands came up to grip her waist. This is a bad idea. Probably the worst. You could still leave. I'd pay you the full amount. Kendra kissed him, swallowing whatever he was about to say. This kiss was slower, deeper, a question and an answer. When she pulled back, Taehyung's eyes were molten. I'm not leaving, she said firmly. Not tonight. Not in 6 months. Not until you physically drag me out. Kendra, I know what I'm signing up for. Your world, your enemies, your ghosts, all of it. And I'm choosing to stay. Why? It was the most vulnerable she'd ever heard him. Kendra cupped his face, feeling the tension in his jaw. Because somewhere between the diner and tonight, I fell for you. The real you. Not the Falcon, not the crime boss. The man who drinks his coffee black and works too hard and protects people he cares about with everything he has. She smiled softly. That man is worth staying for. Taehyung kissed her then, pulling her onto his lap, his hands tangling in her hair. I don't deserve you, he murmured against her lips. Good thing I don't care what you deserve. They made love on his desk, desperate and intense, 6 weeks of denial finally breaking. Afterward, Taehyung carried her to his bedroom, not her suite, his, and they lay tangled together, skin against skin. The attack tonight, Kendra said as dawn started to color the sky. Was it Petrov? Probably. He's been trying to take over my territory for months. Attacking the gala sends a message. Taehyung's fingers traced patterns on her back. I'll handle it. How? Better you don't know. Taehyung, I just showed you everything, Kendra. Let me keep some of the darkness away from you. She understood. There were lines even she didn't want to cross, realities she couldn't bear knowing. Just be careful. Always. He kissed her forehead. Sleep. We both need it. But as Kendra drifted off in his arms, she couldn't shake the feeling that something worse was coming. The attack had been too public, too bold. Someone was making a move, and she was right. The morning brought clarity and complications. Kendra woke in Taehyung's arms to find Shiwoo in the doorway, his face pale with urgency. Boss, we have a problem. Within minutes, they were dressed and in Taehyung's war room, a secure space in the penthouse Kendra hadn't known existed. Dongwook was there despite his injury, along with several other high-ranking members of the organization. On the screen was a video. Petrov, standing in what looked like a warehouse. Lim Taehyung, Petrov's voice echoed from the speakers. Your attack on my men last month was a mistake. This marriage to that black girl, another mistake. You're weak now, predictable. It's time for new leadership in this city. The video cut to another scene. Kendra's blood ran cold. It was her mother's house. Petrov's men were standing outside. Your wife's mother, Linda Morrison, your associates, they're all vulnerable. Unless you transfer control of the northern docks to me by midnight, they all die. And I'll save your wife for last, so you can watch what happens when you defy me. The screen went black. Kendra couldn't breathe. Her mother who had nothing to do with this world, who'd raised Kendra alone after her father left, who was recovering from heart surgery. We move now, Dongwook said. Hit every Petrov location simultaneously. He'll expect that, Taehyung said, his voice deadly calm. But Kendra could see the fury in his eyes, the way his hands clenched. This is about me. He wants me to lose control, make mistakes. So what do we do? Shiwoo asked. We give him what he wants. Taehyung met Kendra's eyes. Me. No, Kendra said immediately. Absolutely not. It's the only way to keep everyone safe. I go alone, negotiate. He'll kill you. Probably. Taehyung's smile was cold. But he'll release the hostages first. It's how these things work. This isn't happening. Kendra stood, her mind racing. There has to be another way. There isn't. Yes, there is. Kendra turned to Dongwook. The video showed the warehouse location, right? Did you recognize it? Old textile factory on the south side. Petrov uses it for storage. How many men does he usually keep there? 10, maybe 15, but he'll have more now. Not if he thinks he's got the upper hand. Kendra paced, her legal training kicking in. He expects Tae-hyung to either surrender or attack directly. We do neither. We extract the hostages while negotiating. Tae-hyung stared at her. You're suggesting a simultaneous operation. I'm suggesting we outsmart him. You negotiate, keep his attention. Your team extracts my mother and the others. By the time he realizes what's happening, it's too late. It's risky, Dong-wook said. If he suspects, then we make sure he doesn't. Kendra turned to Tae-hyung. You said you'd teach me your world. This is my world too now. Let me help. For a long moment, Tae-hyung said nothing. Then he nodded. We do this together, but Kendra, if anything goes wrong, you run. Promise me. I promise, she lied. The plan came together quickly. Tae-hyung would meet Petrov at a neutral location, an abandoned building downtown. While they negotiated, Dong-wook would lead a team to extract the hostages. Shai-woo would coordinate communications. And Kendra, despite Tae-hyung's protests, would be in the van as backup, her paralegal knowledge useful for navigating the legal implications if things went sideways. This is insane, Attorney Bell said when they briefed him. If Petrov discovers the extraction, he won't, Tae-hyung said coldly, and if he does, I'll kill him myself. Evening came too fast. Kendra dressed in black tactical gear that Shi-woo provided, her hands surprisingly steady. Tae-hyung pulled her aside before they left. If this goes wrong, he started. It won't. If it does, I need you to know. He cupped her face, his thumb brushing her cheek. These past weeks with you have been the most real thing in my life. I don't regret any of it. Don't talk like you're saying goodbye. Kendra kissed him, pouring everything she felt into it. We're both walking away from this. Together. Together, he echoed, but his eyes held doubt. The extraction team moved first. Kendra watched through body cam feeds as Dong-wook's men approached the warehouse, silent as shadows. They identified her mother through a window, alive, thank God, tied to a chair, but unharmed. We're in position, Dong-wook reported. Waiting for your signal, boss. Tae-hyung was already at the meet location. Petrov arrived with an army, 20 men bristling with weapons. On the comms, Kendra heard every word. Lim, Petrov said, almost friendly. Glad you came to your senses. Let's talk terms. Tae-hyung's voice was calm. You want the docks, what do I get in return? Your wife's mother lives. Maybe your wife too, if she's learned to behave. Not good enough. I want guarantees, documentation, proof of life for all hostages. You're not in a position to negotiate, then we're done here. Tae-hyung turned to leave. Wait, Petrov's voice sharpened. Fine, I'll show you the hostages are alive, but then you sign over the docks. No more games. While Petrov was focused on Tae-hyung, Dong-wook's team moved. Kendra watched, her heart in her throat as they breached the warehouse. Silent takedowns of guards, her mother being untied, helped to her feet. Linda Morrison, looking terrified but unharmed. Package secured, Dong-wook reported, moving to extraction point. Kendra exhaled. Tae-hyung, they're safe. Get out of there. But before Tae-hyung could respond, gunfire erupted. Petrov's men were firing, not at the warehouse but at Tae-hyung's location. Betrayal. Petrov had never intended to negotiate. It's a trap, Shi-woo shouted. Boss, get out! On the camera feeds, Kendra watched in horror as Tae-hyung dove for cover, returning fire. His men engaged Petrov's forces, but they were outnumbered, and Petrov himself was advancing on Tae-hyung's position. We need to help him, Kendra said, already moving. Mrs. Lim, you promised to stay here. That was before they started shooting. Kendra grabbed a weapon, just a handgun, but she knew how to use it. I'm not letting him die. She was out of the van before Shai-woo could stop her, running toward the sound of gunfire. Her paralegal training hadn't prepared her for this, but growing up in the South Side had. She knew these streets, knew how to move through shadows, knew survival. She found Tae-hyung pinned down behind a car, blood seeping from his shoulder. Petrov and 3 men were advancing, weapons raised. Kendra didn't think. She fired, taking down one of Petrov's men. The distraction gave Tae-hyung time to eliminate another, but Petrov himself reached them, grabbing Kendra, his gun to her head. Drop your weapon, Lim, Petrov snarled, or I paint the street with her brains. That's when everything led to the hook. Tae-hyung, standing frozen, face twisted with fear. Kendra meeting his eyes, seeing everything they'd built together about to shatter. "Let her go," Tae-hyung said again. "This is between us, Petrov." "But she's the perfect leverage, isn't she? The great Lim Tae-hyung, brought to his knees by a woman he married by mistake." Petrov's fingers tightened in Kendra's hair. "Everyone expected her to suffer in your world. They had no idea you'd be the one suffering instead." Kendra's mind raced. She felt Petrov's grip, calculated angles, remembered every self-defense move she'd ever learned. She met Tae-hyung's eyes and mouthed, "Trust me." Then she slammed her head back into Petrov's face. The Russian's grip loosened just enough. Kendra dropped, rolled, and Tae-hyung fired. 3 shots, center mass. Petrov went down. Silence fell. Then sirens, Tae-hyung's men securing the area, Dong-wook reporting all hostages safe. Kendra stayed on the ground, adrenaline crashing until Tae-hyung pulled her up and into his arms. "You promised to run," he said, his voice breaking. "I lied." Kendra clung to him, feeling his heart race. "I told you. I'm not leaving you. You could have died. So could you. That's what love is, isn't it? Choosing someone even when it's dangerous." Tae-hyung pulled back, his eyes searching hers. "Love? Yeah." Kendra smiled despite her tears. "Turns out this contract wife fell for her contract husband. Inconvenient, I know." "Inconvenient," he echoed. Then he was kissing her, desperate and relieved, and full of everything they'd both been too afraid to say. Around them, his men politely looked away. Dong-wook was grinning. Even injured, Tae-hyung was smiling against Kendra's lips. "I love you," he said when they finally broke apart. "Not the contract. Not the arrangement. You." Kendra Washington, who threw a champagne bottle at armed men and headbutted a Russian mobster. "You're absolutely insane, and I love you." Lim Tae-hyung, ruthless crime boss who makes really good coffee and protects everyone he loves even when it destroys him. Kendra kissed him again. "I love you too." Later, at the hospital where they both received treatment for minor injuries, Kendra's mother was waiting. Linda Morrison took one look at her daughter and Tae-hyung and shook her head. "So this is the man you married without telling me?" "It's complicated, Mama." "Uncomplicated, then." So Kendra did. She told her mother everything, the contract, the threats, the attack, the love that had grown despite impossible odds. When she finished, Linda turned to Tae-hyung. "You love my daughter?" "More than my own life," Tae-hyung said without hesitation. "And you'll protect her, even from your own world. I'll do everything in my power to keep her safe, but—" He met Linda's eyes. "I can't promise safety. My world is dangerous, I won't lie about that." Linda studied him for a long moment. Then she nodded. "At least you're honest. That's more than her daddy ever was." She turned to Kendra. "You sure about this, baby?" "More sure than I've ever been about anything." "Then you have my blessing, but if you hurt her—" "I won't," Tae-hyung said. "I promise you that." In the weeks that followed, things shifted. Petrov's death left a power vacuum that Tae-hyung filled, consolidating control. But he did it differently, negotiating instead of warring, building alliances instead of demanding submission. Kendra was beside him, learning the business, using her legal knowledge to clean up operations, finding ways to transition toward legitimacy. It wouldn't happen overnight, but it was possible. The threats stopped. Kendra's mother recovered fully, even developed a fondness for Mrs. Chen, the two women bonding over their shared exasperation with Tae-hyung's workaholic tendencies. Dong-wook healed, joking that he owed Kendra his life. Shiwoo started dating a teacher he'd met at one of Kendra's charity events. Life, impossibly, became almost normal. 6 months after their contract marriage began, Kendra and Tae-hyung sat on the penthouse terrace, watching the sunset paint Chicago gold and crimson. "The contract ends today," Tae-hyung said quietly. "You're free to leave. I'll transfer the full payment. Keep it." Kendra laced her fingers through his. "I'm not going anywhere." "You could. You don't owe me anything." "I know." She turned to face him. "But I choose to stay. Not for money, not for a contract, because I love you, and this is where I belong." Tae-hyung pulled a small box from his pocket. Inside was a ring. Not the simple band he'd given her at their contract wedding, but a stunning diamond that caught the fading light. "Then marry me again," he said. "Not for business, not for immigration, for love, for real, forever, the way it should have been from the start." Kendra's eyes filled with tears. "Yes, God, yes." He slipped the ring on her finger, kissing her deeply. "I don't deserve you," he murmured against her lips. "Stop saying that. We deserve each other. All the mess, all the complications, all the danger. We chose this. Together. Together," he agreed. They stayed on the terrace as stars emerged, planning a real wedding, talking about the future, building a life that belonged to both of them. The contract that brought them together had expired, but what they'd built, through threats and gunfire, through fear and hope, through a love that refused to be contained by paperwork, that would last forever. Kendra Washington had learned early in life that survival meant keeping expectations low. But Lim Tae-hyung had taught her something different. Sometimes survival meant believing you deserved more, demanding more, fighting for more. And love? Love was worth any price, any danger, any obstacle. After marrying the ruthless Korean Mafia boss by mistake, everyone expected the black girl to suffer, Kendra said softly. Tae-hyung smiled, understanding the reference to their story, unaware that she'd be the one to save him instead. "We saved each other." "Yes," he agreed, pulling her close. "We did." Years had passed since the contract that changed everything. Kendra stood in the kitchen of their new home, not the penthouse, but a house with a yard in a quiet neighborhood close to her mother's place. Mrs. Chen had insisted on coming with them, claiming she was too old to learn a new employer's preferences. Really, Kendra suspected, she just loved them too much to leave. Through the window, she watched Tae-hyung in the backyard, teaching their 5-year-old daughter Grace how to tend the garden. Grace had Kendra's warm brown skin and Tae-hyung's dark eyes, his sharp intelligence, and her stubborn streak. She chatted in a mixture of English and Korean, switching between languages with the ease of a child growing up in two worlds. "Appa, when can we plant the roses?" Grace asked. "When spring comes, little falcon." Patience. The organization still existed, but transformed. Tae-hyung had spent 5 years transitioning into legitimate businesses, using Kendra's legal knowledge to navigate the path from crime lord to entrepreneur. It hadn't been easy. Some of his men had refused to change, forcing difficult decisions, but Dong-wook and Shi-woo had stood by him, helping build something new. Now Tae-hyung ran a successful import-export business, real estate development, and several restaurants. Some of his old contacts remained. You never truly left that world, but the violence, the constant danger had faded to manageable risks. Kendra had finished her paralegal certification, then law school. She worked at Attorney Bell's firm now, specializing in helping others transition from illegal to legitimate enterprises. The work was rewarding, using her understanding of both worlds to build bridges. "Mama!" Grace ran inside, dirt on her hands and joy on her face. "Appa says we can make kimchi jjigae tonight." "Does he?" Kendra scooped her daughter up, kissing her forehead. "Did you wash those hands first?" "Not yet." Grace giggled, running to the bathroom. Tae-hyung followed, pulling Kendra into his arms. He still wore suits, still moved with that predatory grace, still commanded attention. But the hardness had softened. The man who'd been built of ice and control had learned to thaw, to love openly, to be human. "Happy?" he asked, his hands on her waist. "Unbelievably." Kendra kissed him. "You?" "More than I thought possible." His eyes held everything, their journey, their struggles, their victory. After marrying the ruthless Korean Mafia boss by mistake, everyone expected the black girl to suffer, unaware that she'd find exactly what she didn't know she was looking for, Kendra finished. A home, a family, love that was real. Grace came running back. "Can we call Grandma Linda? I want to show her my garden." "After dinner," Kendra promised. They moved into the kitchen, the three of them preparing the meal together. Grace helped wash vegetables, chattering about her day. Tae-hyung told stories from his own childhood in Seoul, teaching their daughter about her heritage. Kendra added her own family traditions, creating something new, a blend of cultures, histories, love. Later, after Grace was asleep, Kendra and Tae-hyung sat on their porch, hands linked, watching fireflies dance in the summer dusk. "Do you ever regret it?" Taehyung asked quietly. "The danger you faced because of me?" "Never." Kendra squeezed his hand. "Every scar, every threat, every terrifying moment, it brought us here. I'd do it all again. Even signing that contract. Especially signing that contract." She smiled. "Best mistake I ever made." Taehyung laughed, the sound free and genuine. "Mine too." They sat in comfortable silence, two people from different worlds who'd built something beautiful together. The contract had been business, the marriage had become real, and love had been the answer neither had expected to find. In the house behind them, their daughter dreamed. In the neighborhood around them, life continued. And in their linked hands, in their intertwined hearts, two souls who'd found each other against all odds, held tight to the miracle they'd created. Together, always together,